Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Janie Gillette, and we're back here on this Wednesday to break down all the crazy recruiting happenings for Nebraska football here over the past few days. We missed our last episode on Saturday and Monday. Just I was out of town again, and we had some other things going on, so our schedule got broken up a little bit, but we're back here today, and we've got a lot to talk about, so make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and get into the comments section. And Danny, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday morning?
I'm doing good. And see what happens when you miss one show, Chris. It all goes haywire, and you ruin the schedule. And now we have a ton of news to talk about, which actually, all joking aside, might be pretty good for the content of this show because we do better when there's things to talk about and we stay focused.
Well, and we're always pretty good at finding things to talk about if we don't have anything to talk about. But today we don't have to. We don't have to come up with any topics because we have plenty, especially on the recruiting trail. So that's where this show is going to be focused, Nebraska football recruiting, just so you know. And yeah, last night we've been waiting for this to kind of happen, hoping that the other shoe wouldn't drop. And then finally it did. CJ Brona decommits from Nebraska, fresh off a Florida State visit. Thanks a lot, Evan Taylor and Tony White and all you guys for the one last kick in the nards on the way out the door. But this one definitely stings. I honestly don't care about, James Williams and all the other guys that, left to Florida State. But losing CJ Brona, who to me is just like the definition of a blue chip, recruit, close to the top 100, runs 10.34, great ball skills, great size. So this one really does sting for Nebraska. What are your thoughts on the decommitment of CJ Brona?
It definitely stings from a production perspective because he's an extremely talented athlete. He played both sides of football in high school. Very, very talented addition to the secondary. I've said before, I was going to be surprised if he stayed committed to Nebraska because once people started to realize how good an athlete he was and how good he can play, I really didn't think he was going to stay committed to the Huskers. It does sting, especially, the Tony White and Evan Cooper factor. But and I'm going to be petty here for a second. When your head coach has the possibility of getting fired if he doesn't have a good year this year, then maybe it will all balance out.
Yeah, and so looking, not that I want to lead into this point, but I know there's been a lot of Nebraska fans that have been red in the face about the rankings. So, I mean, this isn't going to help in that sense. So Nebraska, 74th overall in the 2026 class in the rankings, according to the 24/7 composite rankings. That's what I like to go by. I know there's been some on-3 rankings where Nebraska's dead last in the Big Ten, and I know that some people have been freaking out about that. So, I still am not overly worried, but so here are the 5 commitments. We'll get to Hayden Ainsworth in a second, but then Davion Bonwell-Whitty, which I don't know if this guy's going to be part of the class. I mean, he did not take an official visit during this during this month of June. So to me, that's
I haven't had a peep on him. So
yeah. So I don't even know if we, consider. So there might only be 4 commitments in this class right now. Jace Reynolds, obviously, Dayton Rayola, and then Rex Waterman, who just committed recently. So I mean, as we're coming up on the end of the June, it really does need to be kind of a mad dash for Nebraska. And we have said that we aren't really that concerned about this class, but with this decommitment, does that change anything at all? I mean, are you starting to get a little bit worried about just kind of, I don't know, I guess the rankings or just how this class is kind of coming together?
No, it's a good question, because I think what we saw in the last offseason cycle, we saw them go to the transfer portal for a lot of secondary help, right? We saw them go to the transfer portal for a lot of linebackers and things like that. And, I know some fans have been freaking out about Nebraska. Like you said, being last in the rankings. It is only June. You never want to be last in the rankings, but talk to me at the end of December. And even if this may not be a stronger class, I trust this coaching staff to fill needs in the transfer portal. I thought they did a good job of that this offseason, better than they have in the past, 2 years of, Matt Rule's tenure. So it's interesting because you don't want to be dead last in high school recruiting. You obviously want some key high school players, but at the same time with the transfer portal, that kind of gives you kind of margin for error and also a chance to pick up impact playmakers that way. And as long as they continue to recruit hard and, are in these battles and continue to seal the deal in the transfer portal, I'm not overly worried. And honestly, a lot of that too is because they recruited well in the past couple classes in terms, just looking at the offensive side of football. They got a ton of offensive playmakers the last couple classes. They were able to, really strengthen the linebacker core with Christian Jones and Dawson Merritt. So had they not done a lot of the legwork in the past couple classes, I'd be a little bit more worried. But I know, and I think you've agreed with me on this, they seem to be looking, more heavily towards 2027. And I think that might be a smart move moving forward. So long story short, you would like to see them, maybe have a little bit of a better class, but I'm not overly worried. And it's June right now. There's a chance for flips. Heck, we got Dylan Raiola in December of 2023. So I'm not worried yet. And even if this is a smaller class, I wouldn't be necessarily, kind of upset about it, just because the transfer portal's there, and we have a good base of talent on the roster already.
Yeah, I agree in this. I mean, yeah, I don't like being last in the rankings. I mean, I get that, USC and Ohio State and some of these other schools have put up great numbers, but but it's not that hard to move up the rankings with, you get a few commitments and you can move up pretty quickly. So I definitely don't expect Nebraska to be, when we're looking at this class on after signing day, I don't think Nebraska is going to rank 18th in the Big Ten rankings.
No.
I don't think they're going to be ranked outside the top 50. I'd be very surprised if this class didn't get up, somewhere in the, I mean, yeah, maybe it's not going to be top 25 as I thought at one point, but I still think it could be. I still think, like, let's not underestimate Matt Rule. And we'll get to this in a minute, but I mean, there's some players who took their names off the board this weekend, but they've also added some players, on the board this weekend. So, I mean, they know the time and score. Like Matt Rule, he's even said it. I think when he was talking to Sean Callahan over the weekend, and he was doing the the cookout, the smash burger steak kind of competition, and he was hanging out with Sean Callahan. That's kind of one thing that Sean said, just mentioned in passing, that him and Dana Holgerson, who were both there, really emphasized, like, we got 8 days left. And if you don't know what they mean by that, there's a recruiting dead period that's coming up basically on Sunday. So June 23rd starts a recruiting dead period that lasts until August 1st. So this is like a completely different recruiting calendar. And Nebraska doesn't have anybody scheduled. They're probably not going to have any visits until September. And most programs aren't, because what's happening in August? Fall camp. So, I mean, you don't really have time during fall camp. I mean, maybe you could have like a visit or two, come check out practice or whatever. But fall camp is very different than spring ball in the sense that, like, you're a few weeks within getting to a game. And so, like, a spring ball practice where they have kids come for visits, that's much more, you can facilitate recruiting. But I mean, when you're in August, like, that's go time. And so it's a very different process. And
especially for Nebraska when they start in August.
Yeah. And we probably will see some kids, more kids on campus, just because that's the open time frame. And I'm not really sure what visits can be taken during that time period. So really it's going to be a lot of those fall games. And so there will be more of a push. And like I said before, Nebraska might have to, take some more of those guys that are kind of evaluated as, maybe seniors, the late riser types. But I feel like they're great at identifying those kinds of players. And we've seen that with, CJ Brona is another example of that. 0 stars when he committed to Nebraska. And now, flipping to Florida, or not Florida State yet. I don't know who it's going to be, but I know he's decommitted after his visit to Florida State, and he's basically a top 100 guy at this point. So,
Juwan Lacey, same thing.
Yeah. And, she was that guy, Carlin Jones, that like went to Ohio State. I mean, that was another one. So, so yeah, let's look at some good news here, and we'll kind of get back to some of this craziness that's been happening with all the movement on the recruiting board. But there was a new commitment that came down this week. Hayden Ainsworth, that was Monday, if I believe, where he announced his commitment to Nebraska. So he visited that first weekend. So that just shows sometimes it can take a little bit of time for these commitments to kind of come to fruition. But I really like Hayden Ainsworth. I know he's not super highly rated out of Biloxi, Mississippi. 592 according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings. But the really interesting thing, they have him on the main profile. They've got him listed as a tackle. In the rankings, they've got him as an interior offensive lineman. I saw, multiple Nebraska reporters in their graphics say he was a tackle. I saw other ones say he was an interior offensive lineman. So I guess my first question to you about Hayden Ainsworth, do you see a tackle here or a guard?
I see a tackle, mostly because of his size. He is one thing I noticed immediately, he's a big kid, 6'5", 305. I see him at the tackle position, and I know we have Grant Bricks and Preston Tamua, but I view him as a tackle. I don't see him playing inside. How about you?
See, I don't know. When I looked at his film, to me, he looked like a right guard. But not that he can't play tackle.
Yep.
It was interesting to me when I watched a lot of his highlights. And I think it was from 2024, but it seemed like the first like minute or so was just all of him run blocking, and I was like, man, when am I going to see this guy pass protect? The feet, I wonder about the footwork a little bit. I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to, you know, I guess I would be more worried about him on the blind side. On the right hand side, yeah, potentially. I could definitely see him playing tackle.
Yeah.
But if not, I feel like he could play guard too. And to me, I don't know. I see a lot of similarities between him and Rex Waterman, although Hayden Ainsworth is bigger, but I could definitely see this dude as like 6'5", 330 as a right guard. And could definitely be a right tackle too. I'm one of those guys, but I just it wouldn't be a terrible thing if at some point in the next few years you looked up and Rex Waterman was your starting left guard and Hayden Ainsworth was your starting right guard,
Yeah.
because those dudes would have some attitude, and I categorize them both as maulers up front, and that's just watch them run block. Like that's, to me, that's what a mauler is. It's somebody that really, they can move people, and then they really want to finish their blocks, and that's one thing I noticed repeatedly with Rex Waterman and Hayden Ainsworth is they finish blocks and they finish with physicality and they look like they want to hit people. So Nebraska fans, I think, are going to like both of these guys in the trenches.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how they fit into the offensive scheme. I mean, obviously Dana Holgerson is still going to run, but I think it's going to be a pass-heavy scheme. So, you mentioned the footwork, and I totally agree with that. He's going to have to pass protect. Ainsworth is, so I'm curious to see how they're going to be able to develop him in that way and bring him along. But I think he's a really solid lineman. It was weird, 4-star by Rivals, 3-star basically everywhere else. So I don't know exactly how the Rivals rankings works, but I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see how that all, because it's going to be the Rivals on 300 now. So starting at the end of this month, which I'm pretty excited about because I'm going to take advantage of I've been like so tempted to sign up for Rivals. So now I won't have to because I already have on 3. So I'm pretty excited for that for my own personal reasons. But
they have a lot of good content there too, actually. Tim Verges is great.
Yeah, for sure. That's been one of the reasons. He's probably been the main reason why I've been willing to sign up for Rivals, just because he does such great Nebraska content. So anyway, looking ahead to, I guess, not past Hayden Ainsworth here. As we said, the recruiting dead period is approaching, and if you noticed or maybe haven't noticed, there's been a lot of movement on the recruiting board for Nebraska. A lot of kind of crazy things happening just because I think guys are realizing like there's not going to be that many spots left. Like once these teams are pushing for these commitments, like after, if you're waiting to get a commitment in September or August or October, like there might not be that many spots left for you. So I do think we're going to see commitments coming off the board, in the next couple of weeks, like we really haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
And we did see some Deceiving Walker committed to Oklahoma, James Carrington committed to FSU, Kamoy Huai White, the offensive lineman, committed to Cal. Those were all players who were supposed to take official visits to Nebraska this weekend. However, they did also add some official visitors to the schedule, which was very interesting. And the first name that popped up to me, and I know this kid very well because Michigan has been recruiting him, but Zion Robinson. This kid is an absolute stud. If you don't know about him, 6'3", he's 180 pounds. He's out of Mansfield, Texas. His dad is the director of TCU track and field. He high jumps 6'8". 2 years ago, as a high school sophomore, he ran the 100-meter in like 10.93, and I didn't have any times for this year. So basically, he's a higher rated, very similar athlete to Quinn Clark, and he's ranked 133, I think, overall in the composite rankings. So that's a really interesting visit. What do you think about Zion Robinson being added to this weekend?
I think it's a great move because you want fast athletes, you want obviously athletic players, and he definitely fits the bill there. One of the other guys that really intrigued me, and now especially with the loss of CJ Brona, is defensive back Tadarius Hughes out of Florida. defensive backs coach Ashton Williams is a primary recruiter for Nebraska. He took a visit to Lincoln on Tuesday, and I'm wondering, Nebraska got in a little bit late on his recruitment, but he's the 40th overall player in the state of Florida and the 23rd overall player at his positions. And so I'm wondering if he will be someone that they can land and kind of shore up the secondary in that way.
Yeah, and I messed up. So Robinson midweek visit. Sorry about that. So he visited yesterday along with Hughes, and Hughes a Florida State commitment, which is kind of interesting. But he's been committed to Florida State over years, so it's kind of like the opposite of the CJ Brona situation because while I guess John Butler was here, when Brona committed. You still had some changes over there, like with Evan Taylor leaving and to Darius Hughes. Obviously, there's been some changes there as well since he's been committed. So he's been taking a bunch of different visits. So I feel like Nebraska definitely has a good chance to potentially get a flip there, which would add a nice, a nice player to this class, and then a few others that have been. And so with Zion Robinson too. So his recruitment's kind of interesting. He went to Michigan, then he had a visit to TCU scheduled, which seemed like a player with his dad being a director of track and field, but he canceled that visit. So he's visited Michigan, Miami, and he's going to Stanford this weekend. So I really feel like this is a winnable recruitment for Nebraska. Michigan's been in on some other receivers, so I don't know if they've cooled a little bit on Zion Robinson. I don't know why they would, because I think he's one of the best players in this class, but this would be just a home run pickup for Nebraska. Like this why, I mean, to get a receiver of this caliber and with that athleticism, which is like perfect for Matt Rule, I think would be a home run. And then we have some weekend visitors too, and it's really interesting how they're kind of resetting the wide receiver board with Robinson and then also Nayland Scott, who visited this spring.
Yep. I like him a lot.
Yeah, committed to Arizona State. I believe he has offers from the basketball team too, if it's the same guy I'm thinking of. That might be a different player. But anyway, he is visiting as well. He's ranked 404 in the On3 industry rankings, committed to Arizona State. Larry Miles, of course, we've talked about him. He's coming for an official visit this weekend. So I think that would be – so, I mean, if you could have a class there. And then another one, Javion Cooper, a Syracuse commitment, 6'4", 295-pound offensive lineman. So you've got – I mean, that's like 5 guys Nebraska's added to the board this week. And that's why even though – when they strike out on guys, we've said this repeatedly. When they strike out on guys, they have a plan B. They act quickly, and you can see. It wouldn't shock me if more visitors were added to this weekend. You've also got Claude Mpua, the Chicago area offensive tackle. Nebraska leads according to the On3 prediction machine there. Danny Odom, a cornerback who's ranked in the top 200. Devin Jackson, the former Florida safety that Nebraska's been in the mix with. So there's some very talented guys on the board coming this weekend. So, as long as they knock it out of the park, I guess I'm hoping to get some more positive buzz from, last weekend's visitors. But, I mean, I think we're going to get a commitment from Luke Sorensen here any day. I guess it's going to be June 20th if he sticks to that. And
Friday, if he sticks to that, yep.
And I still feel very confident in Cameron Wilson flipping from Syracuse. So, those would be 2 nice pickups. And I'm not super worried, especially when you've got, Trey Taylor in the 2027 class and kind of building things there. So, but I guess, and another thing, it was interesting, though, to see Jet Tamalia flip to Alabama this week. So, we'll see how that one works out. But it's not very often you see a kid from Nebraska, especially a quarterback committing to Alabama. So I don't know. We'll see how that works out.
We'll see, because I do question if he'll be able to translate to the SEC, and this also isn't Nick Saban's Alabama anymore. But it's interesting. I think they were ranked number 2 in the preseason polls from ESPN, so there's still that ESPN bias there. So we'll see. I mean, I'm happy with what we have in the quarterback class. Maybe they should have offered him, but maybe it's a case of he didn't want to go to or stay in Nebraska, and we would probably lose him to Alabama anyway, just because it's Alabama, you know what I mean? So I'm happy with the guys that we have, and Trey Taylor's going to be at the Rivals showcase next week, so maybe Taylor can make some connections there.
Yeah, I think that is a good point, that even if say Nebraska had offered and he was committed to Nebraska. If Alabama makes that push, maybe he just flips to Nebraska. I mean, maybe he flips to Alabama anyway.
It's
So
hard to say no to Alabama. I mean, it really is hard to say no to Alabama.
well, especially, with Kalen DeBoer, I mean, he's been kind of a quarterback
Yeah.
whisperer.
Yep.
So, I mean, I know that Jalen Milroe didn't have like the best season last year, but that's also not really Kalen DeBoer's kind of quarterback. Like I just don't see him ever recruiting a Jalen
Yeah.
Milroe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But he's
Yep.
still, I mean, where did he get picked? He still got picked fairly high in the draft. And, they had some struggles last year, but what we'll see. I do think that Alabama is going to be. I don't think they're going to have that much drop off. They're not. I don't think they're going to be like what they were obviously under Saban, but I don't think they're going to drop off a ton. Although I think the entire SEC is dropping off because they're
Yep.
not. They don't have the ability to bag
The
players. And
money's getting
that
even
that
now.
was
Yep.
that was Nick Saban's best attribute. Okay, like he was a great coach. I'm not going to say he wasn't a great coach. Okay,
Yeah.
but his number one, like if you had a Madden or an EA college football profile, and like his number one skill would be bag dropper. It'd be a McDonald's bag full of cash because that's the main reason why Nick Saban won all of his national championships.
All you had
is
to
because
do
he was
was
the
just
best bag dropper.
Yeah, all you had to do was just see how mad he was getting at all this, and then you realized, hey, you know what? Maybe there were some McDonald's bags being slid under the door at certain visits and things like that. So, yeah, the fact that he got so mad and wanted to go to Congress about it and all this BS was a pretty good giveaway.
Yeah, and and then I love the kid from Vanderbilt. What's his name?
Diego
The
Pava?
quarterback.
Pavia?
Yeah, Diego Pavia taking and like taking shots at the Big Ten. And Brett Bielema kind of annoys me sometimes, but he is pretty funny. And then he kind of was like, all of our coaches agreed to play 9 games in order to play the SEC, and they all voted to play 8 games and not to play us. He's like, so it's funny when you have people go out and say things, but the reality is quite a bit different. And let's see. The Big Ten would have like a 7-3 record last year against the SEC. I don't know what it was, but it was better. And who's got the last 2 national champions? They ain't from the SEC. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, like Brett Bielema is annoying sometimes, but I would love to be coached by him. Same thing with PJ Fleck. Like I feel like, I know that's a sin to say in Nebraska country, but I really do like PJ Fleck, the coach. I feel like he brings a lot of energy to his team and stuff like that. So I do like Brett. He is funny. He can be annoying sometimes, but his teams are always well prepared and ready to go, I feel like.
Yeah, when he got hired, I honestly was like, dang, that would have been a good pick for Nebraska. I know we still had Scott Frost and everything, but I just knew that Brett Bielema was going to win in the Big Ten. I mean, he did really well at Wisconsin. I know he didn't do great at Arkansas, but yeah, I'm not surprised at all that he's found success in Illinois. And now that they finally got a coach, I mean, that could be a really dangerous program. If Illinois can ever get the kids from Chicago to stay home, they could be pretty dangerous in the Big Ten.
And I love Luke Altmaier too. Honestly, I know he took a shot at Nebraska and whatever, and Trey Taylor, but I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Honestly, I don't feel like he gets enough love. He tore us up. Not that that was too hard under Tony White's defense in certain situations last year. But all joking aside, I really do like Altmaier as a quarterback. And on a larger point, even though Tamalia went to Alabama, flipped to Alabama, I do like the fact that the state of Nebraska and its high school athletes, high school football players, are getting more attention nationally. I think it's really good for the state. I think it's good to see a lot of focus placed on these kids because there are a lot of talented kids. And I remember when we started this podcast, 3 years ago, we kept saying, the 2025, 2024, 2026 classes, there's going to be a lot of talent coming from the state. And, we were right. There has been a lot of talent, and it's getting recognized at a national level. And I think sometimes fans get upset that Nebraska can't keep all the kids home, and I definitely understand that. But by and large, I like the fact that the state is getting so much attention for high school recruiting.
And, Matt Rule's still got most of them. So, you're not going to get them all. I mean, that's the thing with recruiting. You're never going to get all the guys that you want. But as long as you get most of them.
Iowa State will.
Well, Iowa State will just get everybody you don't want, I guess.
Except for Jet.
Yeah, except for Jet. Hopefully they don't get Darian Jones. So I'm more worried about Iowa. But I think Nebraska pulled ahead this weekend. So we'll see. We'll see if they can. He's got his visit to Iowa this weekend, though. So
The final visit always looms large, so
it does. And that one would sting to me just because I think he's a better player than his ranking shows, and I just don't want to lose a head-to-head recruiting battle with Iowa. I just don't. So that would piss me off if they lose that one. But I mean, there's only so much you can do though as a team. Like it does suck when you lose recruiting battles. But the thing that I will say about Matt Rule, and I've always said, is that as long as they prioritize players, now sometimes I disagree with who they prioritize, but I do trust the staff in that regard. But they work hard on recruits. Like they put their best foot forward, and kids don't always choose their school, but it's not for a lack of effort. And I know that will be the case if they lose like Darian Jones. It won't be because they didn't try hard enough to get him. It's just he feels that Iowa's a better fit for him, and sometimes that's just the way that it works out.
And I will say that the additions of Jamar Mosey last summer and then Phil Simpson at the end of this year in December were two really good additions to help with recruiting, especially in the Florida and Georgia area, as Simpson is concerned.
And there was with I don't know why, but it reminded me of Luke Sorensen recruiting. Mm-hmm. He actually there was a post, I can't remember who it was, but somebody posted and they were like, "What's the right
Calvin
decision?"
Thomas?
And that's who it was, yeah. And he commented on there like, the right decision. So I definitely think Luke Sorensen is there. I do think that they're in a pretty good spot with Calvin Thomas. Looking back at some of those, Jamal Rule said the running back said Nebraska was in his top 2 after the visit last weekend.
I think he's underrated.
Yeah, I like him too. And then 3-star tackle Leon Noyle from New Orleans is another guy that he said that his visit to Nebraska was, quote, perfect. So I don't know how you beat that, but he's got another visit this weekend. I can't remember who it's with, but I feel like there's a strong chance Nebraska gets all of those guys. So so even though we haven't really seen any, quote unquote fireworks from the June 13th visit weekend, I do think that those some of those are going to go off here in the next few days, and some of them are just looking at other visits before they make their decisions.
Yeah, nowadays I don't think you're going to see a lot of fireworks on visit weekends. I think you might see them a couple days after because kids want to take time and make their decision. It seems like, and I talked about this actually with a friend last night, kids and, a lot of these prospects are getting very smart about making their decisions, being informed, even in terms of NIL. They're starting to really educate themselves, and we're seeing a more mature high school player than we ever have, partly because this has turned into a business. And I think that maturity, translates to making a decision on where they're going to go to school.
Yeah, for sure. And things are so much different now. And then you have, it's a whole different ball game for these kids. And there's a lot of other factors that go into these decisions. So we'll see how it works out, but I think it's going to be an interesting weekend. I think it's going to be an exciting weekend for Nebraska. I think over the next few days, I think over the next week, I think we're going to have a lot of positive recruiting news. There'll be some misses, but I'm going to say that by the end of June, Nebraska will have double-digit commitments in its 2026 class. That's my prediction right now on June 18th or whatever date this is.
So Larry Miles is July 1st. Are you sneaking him in there, even though he's technically July 1st?
Yeah. I'll still say before that they'll have 5 commitments before Larry Miles on July 1st. So that's my prediction.
I'm not telling you because you know this already, but I'm telling the fans they're probably not going to be 5-star prospects, probably not going to be even 4-star prospects for the most part, but they're going to be good football players. I mean, we've seen the quality of players that the program has been able to bring in. I agree with your prediction. There were some misses, but with this staff and how they evaluate prospects and how they try to get ahead, it's hard to keep guys like a CJ Brona or a Lacey. And, you just got to be prepared for those too. And it's, people, what's the meaning of commitment now? Well, if you got a better job offer and that job's paying you more money, you're not going to stay at your old job. So it's a business and they're making business decisions and there's a lot of money involved. There's, playing time and opportunities involved. And, sometimes these kids got to go where they feel is best. And it sucks because it's a whole different college football world, but it's what's going to happen. So I'm off my soapbox, but I just know a lot of fans are upset. Just don't be upset.
Yeah, it'll all be okay. That's the thing is recruiting. You got to take a deep breath. I know I get flustered sometimes and I get stuff, but I do. Yeah. And it won't be a ton of, Yeah, won't be a ton of 4 and 5 stars. But one thing is that you do notice, and I know it's easy to say as a fan of the team that like, oh, these guys are underrated. And I know that's easy to be like, they say that every time, but almost every single time, watch the rankings. After the guy commits to Nebraska, almost every time the rankings jump. And they keep jumping. That's why, because these guys, Matt Rule and his staff, know how to evaluate players. Okay, we've seen it; it's proven. I believe in them. I could care like these guys. I trust them over Alan Trio of 24/7 Sports. Okay, and I'm
I
not
was gonna
trying to.
say part of the reason they jump is because
He's
these
a
guys
great
finally
insider.
get their heads out of their asses and they say, "Oh, maybe we should look at this good player who's actually pretty good, like CJ Brona. Oh wow, now we need to rank him, and we never saw him, but now he's looks good because CTs have offered him." No, CJ Brona was good because he's a good football player, and you guys are lazy.
Well, and it's just the other thing is like, these guys, I feel like they know a lot of good recruiting intel, but I feel like, to be honest, I just feel like they're like amateur scouts. I mean, like how much, I mean, they've seen a lot of players, so they know what a good player looks like, but, there's just Matt Rule knows what NFL talent is. He's coached it, he's recruited it, he's drafted it. Like he just knows, he can see it. He doesn't need to go look at, rankings from 24/7 Sports to tell him what a good football player is. He just knows it. And then when he gets a guy, 24/7 Sports is like, oh man, this guy's pretty good. So that's what I'm saying when like don't worry about the rankings as much. And I'm not saying that those don't matter because obviously they do. When you want to get some of those top 100 guys that are like clearly the elite players. But but most of college football is 3-star recruits. Like that's just the reality. And lots of 3-star recruits go to the NFL every single year. So if you can get the right 3-star recruits, then you know what, you're going to start winning games. And I think Nebraska's done a pretty good job at that. And I trust them to keep doing that.
And if you want good recruiting information, go talk to the local high school coaches, go talk to the bloggers who visit the practices and actually take notes and, try to interview the kids, like the local high school reporters, the local reporters, like the, Prep Zone Nebraska. Like, I feel like those guys and, smaller websites like that have a much better handle on recruiting.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you guys, well, we'll wrap it up there. I think we'll try to get one of our Saturday chats in this weekend. So no promises, but I think we'll be able to get her done.
Yeah.
So we'll put that up on the schedule, and you guys can join us for that. Hopefully, we got some commitments by then. But anyway, if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.